Greetings friends, another video here coming at you from Homegrown Big. I'm sitting next to my Christmas tree with the cute little animal ornaments. Oh, it's got a pocket. And I thought this would be a nice way to start this video. Every year instead of cutting down a Christmas tree, I buy a live Christmas tree and then I plant it in the forest behind my house. This area here where I'm sitting used to be a fully mature Douglas fir forest, and of course humans have heavily over-harvested Douglas fir. This is a Doug fir tree here. This is an endemic species to the Pacific Northwest. They can get nearly 400 feet tall and around 18 feet around. They're giants. They produce some of the strongest, most straight-grained wood in temperate forests, which is why they're so over-harvested. So I like to do that every year. It's a small gesture, but one that I look forward to every year, going out and buying a tree and planting it. I want to talk about, and this is the start of a very long video series that's going to have a playlist. And you can just go to the playlist and see what you need to hear about and how to get started. This is the very first video, and the playlist is going to be just about being self-reliant, and I'm going to focus first on growing your own food and doing permaculture food forests. But I'm also going to talk about growing your own food in small spaces. Not everybody owns land, but a lot of people still want to grow and provide their own food. And honestly, this is a huge problem in the United States. Our #1 crop is grass. And we have a huge problem right now. I took a soil science class. They are predicting in 2040, so not that far from now, based on the rates of erosion that they have historically seen, and they've used physics and some nice science, and they've predicted that the topsoil that we currently use for agriculture and for growing our food will essentially be gone by 2040 at current erosion rates. And this is a problem with modern agriculture and till farming, and they're kind of keeping this really quiet. There should be a much greater alarm regarding this matter than what's really going on. And part of the problem is that there's a lot of urban sprawl and urban expansion, and people are buying McMansion houses and have these huge lawns, and agriculture is also expanding, and we're pretty much at the end of our rope for a lot of arable land globally. And so there's one of a couple of things that are going to happen. We're either going to learn how to do vertical farming somehow, and there's a lot of hope around that, but the infrastructure and the amount of resources that it takes to do that, to get it started, are pretty prohibitive. And the next thing that's going to happen is they're going to take down more forests. And that's the easy thing that humans have historically done. Just look at the Amazon. Oh, you want more agriculture land? Let's just bulldoze these 500 acres of woods, and there you go. You have nice new soil. And that is exactly what's going to happen here. And it's tragic and it's sorry. And one of the big ways that we as individuals can enact change and buffer and mitigate that is by growing our own food. And we really need to get this message into our heads. And in Russia, the Dasha Garden, I really love the idea of the Dasha Garden. It's called the Dasha Garden. You can read about them. It's just your postage stamp garden that almost everybody has their own garden in Russia. And they actually produce about 50% of their total country's food in the little tiny Dasha gardens. Now, imagine if in the United States, people were willing to put a little time, effort, and focus and energy on doing the same thing, and we transformed all of this useless grass, this useless water-grubbing grass, and we turned it into food food production and ecosystem, urban ecosystems. And it would really alter the face of modern food production, agriculture, and just the future of our ecosystems, especially in this country. So, with starting with that, let's talk about how to get started. So the first thing that I want to do to get you started is to provide you with some resources that will help you teach yourself how to do these things. Yeah, I can tell you a lot of stuff, but if you're not here mentoring with me, you're going to need some of your own resources to go to, and you're going to need your own reference library. And there's a ton of stuff on the internet, but I'm going to tell you, there's a lot of bad information on the internet as well. So I have a few Bibles, a few books that I recommend you get before you get started. I'm going to start with the very first book, which is called Gaias Garden. And this is, as far as I'm concerned, the new grower's Bible. This has everything in it from how, why, insects, plant pathogens, when to plant, what are good growing together, what's not good growing together, and just everything. This is temperate based. I think for you people who are in tropical areas, you're going to need different resources. But if you don't have this book and you want to grow things to eat, you should have this book. I can't say enough about this book. I use it all of the time. I go back to it every year. And there's always something deeper and more that I'll learn about it every time I open it up that I wasn't ready to synthesize in previous times when I opened up the book. Get this book. If there's only one book that you're going to get to garden, it's this one. It's Gaia's Garden. The second book that would be probably your second go-to Bible in this time is The Resilient Gardener. Fantastic book. And what I love about this is it's how to be self-reliant in uncertain times. And they know what's coming down the road. And I would just say simply too that for those of us who are old enough or who are going to have families, there will without a doubt be a time in our lives, probably at the end of my lives, but definitely in your children's lives, where the food security that we have known for so many decades now, that has been so ridiculously abundant and so over the top, and it's gonna come to an end. And having a way to produce some of your own really good nutrient-dense food is going to become really important again. And that's going to be returning back to the cycle that I grew up in, where everybody I knew produced most of their own food. So The Resilient Gardener, Food Production and Self-Reliance in Uncertain Times. And there's so many good things in here too. And there's some stuff about raising chickens and how to preserve foods, and a lot of traditional knowledge that is quickly getting lost is in this one. Okay, so there's those two, and then the third one that I really want to push out there, and I have linked this guy's YouTube to my YouTube page, so I really recommend you go over to his YouTube and you check him out. He is a master. He is brilliant. He knows what he's doing. He's created models and infrastructures, and he has executed what people said could not be done, and he is showing that permaculture can be done on large scale. That's the argument that so many people have made, is that, oh, permaculture, you can't do that on, we need industrial agriculture. And he is really showing that you can have efficiency and ecosystems. And his name is Mark Shepard. He wrote a book called Restoration Agriculture, and it's about large-scale permaculture setups. So this might not be applicable to a lot of people who are just getting started, but I would really recommend reading his book and checking out his videos if this is a topic that interests you, or if you have thought that permaculture can't be applied to a larger scale scenario. Okay, so moving on from that to talking about people who are in tiny little spaces, um, or apartments or pea patches, square foot gardening, and it's about how to maximize your output in small spaces. Really valuable asset right here. And there's probably other books that are similar to this, but I just love this is like a how-to manual to use the tiniest spaces to grow the best in most food. And I used this a long time ago before I had space, and very, very helpful. A lot of good stuff about pest control and nutrients that plants need, and how to deal with the issue of nutrients in small spaces. And I'm going to get into that when I start talking about soil building, and things that you need to think about that are a little different on a smaller scale. Moving on from there, if you are just a book fiend and you want to read. If you're like me, I love reading, and then I like to put that into play and experiment with it. I've got a couple of other suggestions. Biodynamic gardening and farming. So biodynamics, kind of like, for some reason, it's a term that never really took hold. And now people are using more like ecosystem based, but it's kind of the same thing. Biodynamic. Lots of great concepts in there. So if you're going to start growing food and you're just getting started, I'm just going to put in here right now that you're going to have to immediately jump into the mindset that it's not just about putting a plant in some soil and watering it. You're going to become a soil gardener. That's your goal. So it's not just a food grower. You're going to become a soil gardener, and you have to start thinking about ecosystems on every level, and that's going to start with soil. And there's some good tips in there about biodynamic gardening and farming. And then if you are where I'm at, which is scaling up, I'm in the process of getting ready to move into another property. Not quite ready for that yet, but I'm looking and I'm making the plan. I'm looking for a much larger property and to do a very large, full-scale permaculture setup, and I'm going to document that entirely on this channel as we go through. But we have another recommended read here, 5 Acres and Independence. So how to be a off-grid, self-reliant, subsistent agriculturalist. Good read right there. It's a handbook for small farm management. So there's some other considerations for people who are doing it in a small scale, but larger than an urban environment scale. I have more. So coming on into talking about orchards. So if you're going to do permaculture, you're going to be growing fruit trees and nut trees, and berries and other sorts of things like that. And I cannot recommend enough this book, The Holistic Orchard by Michael Phillips. He is an absolute master. He is the man. This guy, he is just a volume of knowledge. Oh my God, he's so great. And he does it in a biological way. So there's so many good tips here about how to keep your orchard healthy, how to do biological pest management, all of it. I have learned so much from this book. Really great resource. If you are doing like balcony growing or you have a rental, you can do fruit trees in small spaces. And this was one of my first starter books before we had property. And this is a great resource for somebody that's in a restricted space. And there's a lot of good information in here about how to grow fruit trees in pots, how to deal with tiny yards, and how to produce smaller fruiting trees and just maximize your production in small spaces. Good book, totally worth the price. All of these books I would not be recommended to you if I didn't think that they were fantastic reads. Let's see what's going on from there. This book, I think that any person who wants to grow their own food should consider taking up beekeeping if you're not allergic to bees. Actually, I know a lot of beekeepers who are allergic to bees, and they do okay. Just get your EpiPen. But considering the problems that we're having with bees and pesticides in general, the more backyard beekeepers there are, the better off we're going to be. And a lot of people have issues about keeping bees, and there's a lot of arguing about that in the vegan community specifically. And to that I would say that you don't necessarily know about bees if you're making that argument, or you don't know enough about bees if you're making that argument. The honeybees that we use for food production are like the vegetables and fruit we use for agriculture. They are bred and bred and bred and bred. They are a pale cousin to their wild counterparts. They do not have the immunity of wild bees. They do not have the behavior of wild bees. They essentially were bred into submission, just like cats and dogs and gentle horses. They took wild species and they bred them for very specific traits, and the traits were not aggressive, so that you could get into the hives and work, and high production of honey. So a honeybee that we use, these are actually European honeybees. The honeybee that we use produces easily 3 times the amount of honey of wild bees. And we did that for a reason, so that we could harvest the honey and have the nutrients from it. And the relationship with these types of bees as a beekeeper is, a lot of people say that it is taking advantage of them and using them and so on. But the reality is that this type of honeybee, this is the book anyhow, Honeybee Biology and Beekeeping, fantastic book. Really the only resource that you need, in my opinion. If you're thinking about keeping bees, get this book. These bees that we use in modern times, that we keep for agriculture and for our backyard bees, they don't really fare well without humans. We have a commensal relationship with them. We provide them with safe housing that raccoons and bears can't get into, and we provide them with mite control and medicine when they need it, and we help make sure that the queen is healthy, and we keep them dry and warm, and we provide them with flowers to eat, and in return they produce honey for us. And so it's a give and take. And I've heard so many arguments about this. I got to do a whole video on it because this video is getting long. But these bees and humans have relationships. They're not wild bees, and we need them and they need us. And I would just reiterate, if you're thinking about growing your own food, please consider keeping backyard bees, even if you don't use the honey product. It's just something that should be part of your plan in executing food production. We don't really have, like here in Seattle, we don't have enough native species to have a high rate of pollination in our food forest. And the native bees here, they come out pretty late in the season. So our early season varieties that we want to have a high pollination rate, like our nectarines and our cherries, they don't do so good without honeybees. So there's that to consider. And then coming to the last 2 books, and I'm going to wrap this up, and that'll be the end of the resources, and we're going to jump right into building winter soil. The last 2 books are something like this one, The Guide to Medicinal Plants of the United States. I think if you're going to grow your own food and you're really going to focus on ecosystem dynamics, having medicinal herbs and species in your food forest or amongst your garden is really important. And it's good to just, I think, for humans to keep our knowledge about healing plants. As humans, we're rapidly losing a lot of our knowledge, like our native indigenous knowledge. And I don't just mean like Native American, I mean all humans are losing these like knowledges of how to grow things, what plants are good for what. Even my mom, like growing up one generation away, she knew all the plants and how they would help you heal and what herbs you could use. And you ask people in my generation, they're like, I don't know, take an aspirin. You know, like this is a problem. So medicinal herbs, and then something like this. You could pick a lot of these ones up. Like I'm not necessarily suggesting this one specifically, but having a book like this that you can pick up at your local Goodwill, or maybe you have like I got this one at a plant book sale at the local botanical gardens. So it's an older book, but it's a great handbook. It's organic insect and disease control for your garden. And those are the main ones that you'll need. And then calling up some great place like Territorial Seed Company and ordering a seed book. That's your starter kit. All right, so that is the end of this video segment. Keep checking back if you want to learn how to be self-reliant and growing your own food. I'm going to keep putting up as many videos as I can now, not just updates of the food forest, because I'm graduated and I have time to start executing all these ideas and plans. And 2017 is going to bring a very different face to this channel. I hope you're well. And I hope you're excited about starting to grow your own food this year. It's going to be a great year. Now's the time to get started.